Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the Cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, the upcoming monthly close. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Also check out the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com if you want to know how I am navigating the markets. Let's go ahead and jump in. So, if you remember, we've talked a lot about these weekly closes and whatnot. If we go look at the weekly closes for Bitcoin, some of the things we've noted before is that it would look very bullish for Bitcoin to have weekly closes above 60K, right? Above 60K. Why is that important to close above 60K? Well, it's because that is where we held resistance for months, okay? We held resistance at 60K. We went up to it in February. We got rejected. We went almost up to 60K, around 58K. Close enough, right? What's a couple $1,000s among friends? We went up to 60K here, but it was a wick, all right? A wick above. All of these were just wicks above. We didn't really have any closes above 60K on the weekly time frame for Bitcoin earlier this year, all right? So with that in mind, the reason we said that 60K is important is because it shows that Bitcoin is at least trying to turn the prior resistance that we spent 3 months getting rejected from. 3 months getting rejected from. We're turning that prior resistance into support, okay? We had a weekly close here at a very modest 61.5. We had a weekly close here at 60.9. We're currently coming in on another weekly close here in just over a day from the time that I'm recording this video. And right now the price, as you can see, is at 61.5, which is where we closed the week 2 weeks ago. But here's the interesting thing, right? We know that closing above 60K looks really great, and I think the more frequently or the more often we're continuing to close above 60K, it's only going to make the case stronger that 60K is now in fact support. I've seen a lot of people say things like, the more we test the level, the more likely we are to break. I don't know that that's, yeah, there is some truth to that. Like obviously if you go back down to the same level, there's a certain probability that you could break below it. But I've also said before too, holding the line at the 20-week SMA is a good thing, and I like to see it test it, right? Really test it. And it did really test it. It tested over 4 weeks, okay? We tested that bull market support band over 4 weeks. And if you go look at the daily time frame, we held the line. And since we held the line, we said, just look, we're likely gonna have clear skies ahead. It's only a matter of time before we put in new all-time highs. So the daily looks good. Look at all these daily closes at these levels above 60K, right? We put in a lot of daily closes now above 60K. We've now put in 2 weekly closes above 60K, and we're hoping to put in a third. But now we're gonna go look at an even longer time frame candle. The monthly candles, okay? Why don't we go to 2 weeks first? Here are the 2-week candles. We had one close, the 2-week candle above 60K. Obviously, this one still has over a week to go, all right? So 2-week candles still look good, but the monthly candle, let's take a look at the monthly candle. Now, this is an interesting candle. Why? Because the highest prior monthly close was only 58.8K. So, what I'm saying is, if Bitcoin can close the month above 58.8K, I think that is going to look fairly bullish, right? I think that's going to look fairly bullish. We've compared this cycle to the 2013 cycle a number of times, and I know it seems obvious to everyone now that it looks very similar to the 2013 cycle. It's a stretched out version of it. I know everyone's now saying, oh, it's just the 2013 cycle. We were saying that back in December and January. We were talking about this double peak cycle. So again, I know it seems obvious to everyone now, but it was fairly obvious back then as well for those who cared to listen and not say that it was just going to go to 300K by September or something. It was even obvious back then that was highly unlikely to happen. And then now you can see, okay, in hindsight, everything seems obvious, right? In hindsight, everything seems obvious. But if you go back and look at the 2013 cycle, what you'll notice is we had a move like this. Okay, so we had these monthly closes, and then we came back up to it. All right, in August, we had a couple months where we hung out at that price, and then we started moving up. All right, So you look at the same thing today. Okay, look at this. One candle up, one candle that sort of hung out there a little bit, and then one candle that dropped us down to the bull market support band. One candle that took us up, one candle where we sort of hung out there, one candle that took us down below the bull market support band. And rather than just taking one month after hitting the bull market support band to get back up to the prior all-time high, right? Rather than just taking 1 month in terms of the weekly close, not the wick, rather than just taking 1 month off of that, you can see that it actually took 4 months. Okay, we've said all along that this market cycle is a stretched out version of 2013. A lot of people say it's the exact same thing as 2013. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I mean, I think, as we've said before, it looks like a very much stretched out version of 2013. Now, there are some similarities in the sense that we put in a new all-time high, technically speaking, and of course the best way to be correct is technically correct, about 6 months after. And we said it's going to take about 3 to 6 months. But if you go look at this market cycle over here and then overlay it on this one is clearly a stretched out version of 2013. Clearly a stretched out version. Because the second peak in the 2013 cycle should have already come like a long time ago. Like we would have already seen it a while back, okay? So maybe you could take this one and sort of, compress it or something, do something like this and say, all right, well, it's sort of like a stretched out version of that cycle. All right, and maybe that is what we should be looking at, and then looking at sort of where we are today, and then where we could ultimately, sorry, it's hard to get this exactly correct, but where we could ultimately be headed. But I think we're sort of looking something like that, right? I mean, it looks like a fairly similar move, a blow off top. This one clearly wasn't a blow off top as much, and then a second move to come later on. I certainly don't think it's going to go up to these prices, because again, the first leg of the cycle couldn't keep pace with that 2013, so I wouldn't expect the second one to either. But you can see the similarities, right? You can see the similarities between the two cycles. Now, it could be interesting, right? One thing that could be interesting to do would be to take the 2013 move and overlay it, not from the cycle bottom, but maybe overlay it from the dump in March, right? Maybe overlay it from the dump in March. And even here, there are still a lot of similarities. From that point, the first cycle would have peaked in August if you normalized it to be in March of 2020. And then the second one wouldn't peak until March of 2022 if you were to say just normalize it from that area. But that's also an interesting way, I think, to look at the market. So the key thing, I think, to take away is we have a very important weekly close coming up tomorrow and a monthly close. You don't always get weekly closes on the same day as monthly closes, but when you do, they are pretty interesting. So we're going to be coming in hot on a weekly close. We'd like to see it close above 60K so that we can say, once again, we have a third candle with a weekly close above the prior resistance line. And then on the monthly time frame, we even have actually a little bit more wiggle room on the monthly time frame, because on the monthly time frame, we just want to close above, let's say, we want to close above 58.8, right? If we close above 58.8, then we're still technically potentially turning in prior resistance into support. So we have a little bit of wiggle room there. So it is my interpretation that if Bitcoin were to close above 60K again for the third week in a row and for the first month ever, it's going to look really bullish going into the next several months. All right, so that's what I'm looking at. I wanted to give you guys an update. Obviously, you guys know Bitcoin's doing relatively well. We had the move in August to get us back above the bull market support band, the pullback in September, which historically happens. October tends to be a pretty good month. A lot of times November is a good month too. So let's see what November has in store. If you go look at last October, we put in 28%. This October, we're already up 40%. We've done better this October than last October. Last November put in 42%. It took us all the way from like 13K or maybe 13.5K all the way up to around $20,000. So that would have been a 42% move. Now, are we going to make another 42% move this month? I think that's probably hard to say. That would be a fairly nice move. If we were to go up 42% in November from, say, the current price, a 42% move would actually take us to around $86,000. Okay, that would give you an idea if we were to emulate what happened in the last year. Regardless, I would say Bitcoin still looks pretty good. I'm still certainly leaning bullish on Bitcoin. As I've said before, all I want to see happen is for Bitcoin to hold the line at the bull market support band. It did that, so we usually have clear skies ahead when that happens. You know, could we go back down and test some lower levels on the way up? We could, right? We could, but I would say, you know, that's somewhat inconsequential if that happens, right? It's somewhat inconsequential if that happens, and I think that would just provide an opportunity more than anything else. We also do have, I wanted to mention, we don't really talk about the merchandise stuff much on the channel, but if you guys want, we have these jackets. If you guys want one, it's getting cold outside where I am anyways, so make sure you pick one up, store.intothecryptoverse.com, and also check out the NFT. We'll link that down in the description below as well. They're going to be burned, the ones that are not sold, by the end of the month, so you really just have like 1 or 2 more days before those are going to get burned. So if you want to pick one up, make sure you do so. One of them's already sold out, and then there's another one that has like 40 something copies left. So make sure you guys check it out, subscribe, click the bell icon to turn on notifications. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Bye.